Welcome back to New Rockstars. We have to talk about Avengers Doomsday. Production is starting soon. The Russo brothers are starting to talk about this movie. And all the while, crazy things are happening in the House of Mouse as Kathleen Kennedy is being rumored to be leaving the studio, but Kevin Feige is being rumored to be leaving Marvel and going to Lucasfilm. Or is this all a bunch of BS? As people inside are just trying to play the media like a fiddle, and New Rockstars is staying a step ahead of this. We know what's really going on, and we're going to break down the fascinating story of what's really happening behind the scenes here, and how it could impact Avengers Doomsday and the Mutant Saga Beyond. This is the Marvel Sneak Peek, the show at New Rockstars that looks ahead to the future of Marvel, and I'm Erik Voss, and I'm here with Brandon Barrick. Hello, Brandon.
Hello, Erik. Great to be back here on the Sneak Peek. I'm just filling in for Jessica, who's on assignment today. But happy to be here to talk about this. This isn't the rumor rundown, so we got to get these rumors out of here.
That's right. No rumors here. We're only reporting the facts. There will be some speculation in this episode, but we're trying to do it not in the interest of like talking about rumors that come from the scoopers, but really just like actual journalists with actual sources and how that credibility actually played into the biggest Marvel story this week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I love that anytime the Russos get anywhere near a mic now, even to promote their own movie, The Electric State, coming to Netflix soon, they're going to get bombarded with doomsday questions.
Yeah.
And even the reporters feel bad about it. They're almost like, I'm so sorry, I have to ask this, or else my bosses will get mad at me.
I think there is like a truly financial interest in all of us asking them about Avengers Doomsday because the directors and actors are paying like a combined $180 million. And I'm not saying that's taxpayer money, but if you like subscribe to Disney Plus and have been to the Disney parks, aren't you kind of emotionally invested in how your money's being spent? I think it's important for us to be asking them every time they get in front of a mic, what are you actually doing with this money?
Yeah.
And I said our, but it's not my money. I'm not a shareholder.
A little bit of your money. I own one share of Disney stock.
Shill!
And I will wield my power like a mighty god. But no, I mean, I think a lot of Marvel fans have given the MCU time to breathe. Like, let's see what they can build in phase 4 and 5 and 6, and how will they land this bird? And it's time to land it. And so I think it's smart for the Russos to be out there saying positive things about production, which is set to begin in just a little over a month.
That's right.
If the rumors are true, they're going to begin shooting in April in London. Again, Marvel has kind of doubled down on shooting a lot of things in Atlanta. They've built a whole facility in Georgia. But even bringing back the Russos and Robert Downey Jr. meant you're going to have to be filming in London. And they're going to film these two movies back to back, which I think is a little intense.
They initially said that they were going to have a bit more time in between Doomsday and Secret Wars than they did in Infinity War and Endgame, but now it kind of sounds like, well, we have to push back Doomsday a little bit by like 3 weeks.
Right.
So that gap period is closing quickly, and it's going to end up being back-to-back probably again.
Which is how they shot Infinity War and Endgame.
That's right.
But they still released 2 Marvel films in between those 2 movies, right? We got Ant-Man and the Wasp, as well as Captain Marvel, which came out in between Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're going to have 2 films to pop in this time.
Yeah, we don't really know what's happening with Marvel Studios in late 2026 and in early 2027. They haven't announced anything, but they do have weekends where they could drop stuff. They've got weekends
locked down, but those could always go away, or they could go to other projects
for sure
in the Disney bubble. So we'll just have to wait and see. But let's talk about what they have been saying, especially this week.
Okay, so they were on the red carpet for the premiere for The Electric State. That's the new Agbo film starring Chris Pratt that's coming out on Netflix. And maybe we'll break it down here on New Rockstars.
I mean, we might break that down. It could become a larger franchise. They were asked on the carpet about it. They said they didn't have any plans for a sequel right now, but I guess there's going to be a game released through Netflix games that they were a part of, the Russos were a part of. They were also kind of throwing out there maybe a series that follows up this film. We'll have to see. And you mentioned Chris Pratt's in it, but Anthony Mackie also voices a character in this film.
Yes, he does.
There's several Marvel or MCU members in the movie, which they did get asked about, as well as other folks like Giancarlo Esposito, new to the MCU, right? And, maybe some other actors they could consider bringing over that they had a good time with in The Electric State. I don't know.
We'll see. Agbo has a lot of control over the future of Marvel right now. Here's what they said on the red carpet. They were asked about Avengers Doomsday, the upcoming Avengers films, and they confirmed that all the production is happening in London, that they're shooting them fairly back-to-back. It's a lot of work. Again, they may not survive. We'll see. And then they said, but we're very excited about it. We found a way into the story that we think is going to be challenging for audiences. It's challenging for us us to execute, and it's really exciting for us. It gets us out of bed to do it. They also use the term radical at some point.
Yeah, I said that to Deadline, and when they were asked by the Hollywood Reporter about it,
they said, I think these movies are gonna be a surprise to people. We found a way into the story that's very exciting for us, but we think very radical, and I think it's gonna challenge audiences. So again, they have these talking points they've agreed upon.
Two different outlets this challenging word, which I think I have a theory of what that means.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Well, let's just also contextualize it where the only thing they told us at a Comic-Con was new mask, same task, and that's how Doctor Doom is gonna fit into it. Who knows what that means, but we'll see. They also talked about X-Men characters, the Deadpool universe. Joe Russo said, who knows? I don't know. I don't know who we're going to see. I still don't know. Anybody in the Marvel bag could show up in this movie. And then they've also said things in, they have this new Agbo podcast called Pizza Film School, where the Russo brothers try a different pizza every week, and they interview someone in their orbit who they've worked with. And the new season just dropped, and they talked to Marcus and McFeely. We know that Stephen McFeely is solely writing these movies now, or at least Doomsday, and that Christopher Marcus is not, but he is kind of running a lot of things at Agbo, and both of them talked a lot in this podcast about the importance of movie structure and screenplay writing, and they talked about how they really had to structure Thanos as the protagonist of Infinity War in order to make that story work. A lot of people wonder how do you even execute these movies if they have dozens of heroes in them? Well, you have to find the central point of view of it and structure the movie around that character, and then you can kind of divide the total lineup of heroes into smaller groupings, and that you can kind of structure the second act of the movie and give everyone their own individual arcs if you can just align interests around different pockets of characters. And that, I think, is why these guys are paid so well, and why they've been kind of unique, is not every screenwriter can think that multidimensionally as they can. But it requires a bird's eye view of these characters, and it's very, very hard to structure, but it's a lot of discipline. So I highly recommend you listen to that podcast, because I think it'll give you some sense into how Stephen McFeely is writing Avengers Doomsday right now.
And you don't think, he gets into a tough spot, he's going to pick up the phone and be like, hey, Marcus, help me write my way out of this one.
Oh, I really think he is. I think what we're going to see is screenplay.
Because usually they're a duo, they've worked together. Yeah. Every Marvel film they worked on together.
Right. You're going to see a story by a bunch of different people. Michael Waldron or Jeff Loveness might still get a story by credit. That's based off of WGA arbitration, and it wouldn't surprise me if Christopher Marcus ended up in there. And then there's one other quote I wanted to get in here. Anthony Russo was included in a recent Esquire article about Anthony Mackie, and he was talking about what Sam Wilson, Captain America, what role he'll play in Avengers Doomsday. And all Anthony Russo said was he represents a unique space in the Avengers spectrum, and that's the greatest thing, because sooner or later the collective storytelling is going to be in that space he occupies. And I love that quote because I have no idea what it means. So I just wanted to get all the evidence on the table of everything these guys have said about the movie. Brandon, I want to hear your theory for what this radical or challenging approach is.
I think the challenging thing is going to be who the audience aligns with in these movies, because I think we're going to be presented with a lot of heroes that we like, that are going to either be from the 616 that we know or from other universes, maybe even some X-Men who haven't shown up in the MCU yet, but we know who they are and we like these characters, whether they're from Deadpool's timeline or a wholly newly cast mutant, but we know Jean Grey, we love Jean Grey. But some of these characters are going to have to die, and their worlds are going to have to be destroyed. And I'm wondering if that's the challenging thing, is some of these heroes that we've loved for 15 plus years in the MCU, we're going to have to see as villains, making tough decisions to protect their world, whether they're from the 616 or from a different timeline, a different universe. But we don't want to see them be bad, but they're bad now, right? New mask, same task makes me think Dr. Doom is there to put a shield of armor around his universe, much like Tony wanted to do the 616. And we might find ourselves rooting for Dr. Doom in this movie in a weird way, because we learn that his universe should live, and maybe the 616 needs to go. They've been a problem for a long time. They break all the rules. They destroyed their Infinity Stones. They had the TVA running rampant, destroying everything, putting stuff in the void. Our Stephen Strange is a real problem. He's always messing with stuff. He destroyed all the Darkholds in every reality. He's a menace. Like, the 616 has got to go. We killed Tiamat. We're a problem. We're a problem.
I think that is like thematically probably what they're getting at, you know, seeing heroes in different contexts, going from a hero to being a villain, or going from a hero who won to a hero who failed. You know, I think we might see other universes where these actors failed in their mission, and it was closer to the ending of Infinity War, but they weren't able to come back and rally and save their worlds. Or just like as the villains who were successful, you know, if like Chris Evans is playing like a Hydra loyal
Hydra
captain, you know, that's one way we could do this. I think you're right. I think the task is suit of armor around the world / peace in our time. And that Dr. Doom, from whatever world he's from, successfully did that, or has a successful path to do that in like a stitched together multiverse of scraps from other failed doomed universes. Like, it's called Doomsday, right? So I think we're going to see the Doomsday of every different reality, and how in that failure they are now in Doom's kind of sandbox.
Right.
What I'm kind of wondering, and it's the hardest thing, you know, to imagine with like Infinity War and with Endgame. You know what the vision board of that was. When Kevin Feige announced those titles with the golden typeface, it was Infinity War Part 1 and 2. We knew the Jim Starlin penned Infinity Gauntlet storyline from the early 90s. We knew what Thanos looked like already. We knew what the Infinity Gauntlet looked like already. And this is just going to be a Stone Quest type movie using the stones in different crazy ways. And then once we saw like trailer footage, okay, we saw the doomed planet of Titan. We knew that it was going to be taking place on Earth. I don't know what the storyboard art for Avengers Doomsday looks like. I don't know where it takes place. I don't know what the backdrop is. I don't know what the battleground looks like yet. We have this idea of the Void, which is kind of this junkyard of pruned realities. Are we going back to the Void? Are we going to see like a depiction of Earth being destroyed, like with a bunch of like cosmic time streams, like what the Kang Dynasty looked out upon from their balcony, or when Janet Van Dyne plugged into Kang's memory and saw like planets being destroyed? Is that what this movie looks like?
Or like Multiverse of Madness, right? That's Strange that lived on that incursion where it's like New York City, but there's cars.
Yeah, it's
floating
like
in space. And
stuff is floating. Everything is kind of melting upward. Is that the coolest version of this movie? Is that challenging for the Russo brothers to execute? Or is there something more challenging where it's like, you know, it's set in an X-Men world, and we're kind of we start in a House of M world where X-Men are in charge, so they have to build an entirely different world.
Like, we don't see anything familiar to the of the 616 until like Act 3 or something like that, right? We fall in love with this new place, and now we're presented with the reality that it's about to die because the 616 is going to smash into it because Wanda's doing too much reading in the Darkhold.
Right, yeah. I mean, are they saying that they're going to like rebuild some of these set pieces that we saw in the X-Men series in Universe 10005, where we go back to Alkali Lake Lab, we go back to Liberty Island from that battle, we go back to Cerebro, and we see like a ruined version. Like, I don't know if like that's hard for them to do, or if it's harder for them to like build other realities or tell an origin story for Victor Von Doom. Is it hard for them to build a Latveria that we know and we want to spend time in?
That might be the hardest thing, right? They have not introduced Doom in the MCU yet at all, and even in what we know of Doctor Doom from a cinematic perspective is just the two Fantastic Four films from the early 2000s and the Josh Trank one. But none of those were in Latveria. We never saw Latveria. We've never seen Doom's castle or anything like that. So how do you present all that information and make it mean something to the audience? I thought Endgame was so effective because it was, it was the clip show for the MCU. It was like, hey, remember all these great memories you've had along the way? They can't do that again. They have to do that with like characters basically, and like, hey, all these characters you love. Well, half of them have got to go for real this time. And I'm wondering if like this movie, this two-set of movie ends in like a totally new timeline, similar to what they did in the comic books, where it's like we're going to ask audiences to basically let go of their world, because the 616 is our reality, right? It's what we as the audience identify with. It's very close to our Earth. It has, of course, diverged since 2008 when Iron Man introduced himself. But in theory, everything up to them was like our world for the most part. And they had a Captain America running around, all that stuff. But asking the audience to be like, the MCU is going to continue post Secret Wars, but it's going to be in a whole new universe that is not yours anymore. I think that's a challenging thing to do. Thematically and like in storytelling, and even for what the MCU means to be like, it's going to live in a whole new timeline after this movie. Yeah.
I think like it's not hard for them to just have an artist who builds an incursion and designs an incursion. That's just like a matter of like, I think what's harder for the Russo brothers is like story and like emotionally grounded story that draws you in, that squares the circle of what Marvel needs, like a big multiverse event and an incursion. It's just, I think they don't want to do kind of what we've seen before of like portals opening or big scary things in the sky.
Yeah.
Because we've seen that before. Like remember the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event that they did across all the series? Like they did the DC version of that already. So I don't know if the Russo brothers are like excited about that. I think what's harder for them is to like figure out. It's like they have one clear idea, and I think their idea had to do with like Robert Downey Jr. coming back to do this. And that is a bold thing. And I think a lot of cynics in the industry looked at that as like, oh, they just got to bring back their star. I don't think they'd want to do that. I think they obviously like working with Downey, but I think they had to have some kind of like clear need for it to be the face of Robert Downey Jr. And so my thinking is like, imagine Doomsday opens with just like over black. You just hear Robert Downey Jr. say in whatever kind of Latvian voice he chooses for this as, "My name is Victor. I am a scientist from my time who wept as he watched his world burn because he couldn't do enough to save it. I tried to build a suit of armor around my world and I failed and it was destroyed nonetheless." And then open on his Latvian home being destroyed, or his New York being destroyed, and specifically he sees like the copper of the Statue of Liberty's face just melting into teardrops. And we see like the coolest possible incursion that Ryan Meinerding could come up with, just city blocks being wiped out, people screaming,
red like a red planet in the sky coming down, sort of like the comic books, like smashing into the planet almost.
The color is an interesting question. Should it be red? Should it be, because red would be Jonathan Hickman, Time Runs Out. We've seen purple rifts representing, tear and reality. I'm thinking green. What if it's green and it's like Von Doom green, right?
You're green.
You're green.
I know.
And then it's like a quick montage of just Robert Downey. Like imagine the opening minutes of Oppenheimer, and how like we just saw him rapidly go through his education as he was trying to figure out quantum mechanics. We just see Victor Von Doom trying to math his way through to a solution, and he goes universe by universe, and he's unable to save any universe until finally he arrives at the 616 universe, and he sees the face of a guy who looks exactly like him named Tony Stark, and he goes, this guy was able to build a suit of armor around the world.
Right.
Who does he think he is? And then obviously an incursion swallows up the 616 universe, and that's our way into it. It's just like a Victor Von Doom origin story as a scientist who tried and failed to save each universe until he realized that the only way to save it is through whatever new plan he has. Like, I feel like that's their way into it, is destroying multiple worlds. And then in that montage could be he goes to the Statue of Liberty during the Liberty Island battle in the 2000 X-Men film, and like he's witnessing it, as like the sky is lighting up. We see him looking up at the copper-colored Statue of Liberty during the No Way Home battle. We see him going to the Statue of Liberty as Galactus is looming over it, and Fantastic Four first steps, and he just views the Statue of Liberty as like his anchor point to try to stitch these universes together. That there's something about Liberty Island that is like a nexus, physical, metaphysical landmark. And that statue is like, when he builds Battle World, is kind of like the statue that is kind of the anchor point for all of these. That's the center of it all. And then he builds it all around Liberty Island. So maybe we see him back at Liberty Island during the Avengers Endgame opening montage with all the boats moored around it. As he goes, life raft, life raft, life raft, life raft. And he decides that, I can build a new world from this Liberty Island, and then just take life rafts from all these other doomed universes and build it out from there. And one life raft could be a piece of Manhattan from this Galactus destroyed universe. One life raft could be a piece of Wakanda from this other universe. One life raft can be Latveria from this other universe. Can be Xandar from this universe. Every MCU or Marvel anything location we've seen before can be built outward from it. And that's his plan, is to build a peaceful existence. That's crazy what I just said.
I mean, it's a good idea, and that leads me to a question I was having, is like, in Infinity War and Endgame, I think our lead protagonist is Tony Stark, right? Maybe Chris Evans as in Endgame kind of leads it a little bit more. Do you think they will lean on Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom to be the main protagonist in Doomsday?
I think so.
And not present him so much as a villain, but as a protagonist. And, as you mentioned on their podcast, they talked about building Thor as like almost a protagonist, right?
Yeah.
Like really humanizing him. This is an interesting idea, pulling all these life rafts, pulling these people from different universes. What's the antagonist then? Is it just the universe collapsing itself, or is there a force driving these incursions that Doom wants to stop?
I think it's like a man versus nature story, and nature being the failing multiverse.
This is the entropy that the universe is always leading towards.
That's right. Universe has a natural inclination to unravel,
right,
and to go into chaos, and he's trying to keep everything tightly organized, and he can't do it.
And that's his obsession.
Yeah. And then so it's kind of like it is destiny that this is going to happen. So it's one man trying to stop destiny while he is fighting these other heroes from these other worlds, fighting to save their worlds. And I think one of the lineup is like the Avengers from our world, maybe the Illuminati from our world. I had a theory video earlier this week that went into that. The X-Men from another world, the Spider-Man from another world, the Gambit from the Void.
I'm about to put all the universes back together. We're going to make sure that every universe had a crawfish. Delicious.
Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Relationships are complicated. All of them, even the good ones, especially the good ones. Navigating any relationship takes a lot of work and a lot of introspection. If you find yourself stuck in a pattern of pulling away when somebody starts to get close or feeling jealous of your partner's friends, that's gonna get in the way of meaningful relationships that could otherwise be enriching your life. That's something therapy can help with, and our sponsor BetterHelp can help you get started. Instead of being stuck in an endless loop of questioning yourself, you can talk through relationship concerns with someone who's trained to help you find real answers. BetterHelp has made starting therapy as easy as taking a quiz. Just fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple days. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost if it's not the right fit. They carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Going to therapy is a sign of strength, not weakness. There are so many kinds of relationships that can be improved by therapy, not just romantic ones. Click the link in the description, scan the QR code, or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
So I don't know. I think it's going to be something that isn't just like a difficult visual to pull off. I think it's a difficult story to pull off that requires us to like rethink about our heroes as actually the villains of the overall story, or people who are contributing to the problems. But it can't be something that's just like goofy and silly and CGI spectacle. It has to be something that's a bit heartbreaking and a challenge for Robert Downey Jr. to play. Because if they were just casting him as a villain, I feel like they're not getting their money's worth. They got to give him an interesting arc, an interesting story journey for the character.
And I bet RDJ doesn't want to do just Tony Stark again.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to play a new character fully fleshed out with its own drives. I mean, I would imagine he sees Tony Stark as dead and buried, and he probably misses the MCU and is happy to come back, but wants to put a whole new spin on a character that we haven't really seen yet in this way.
Yeah. So I don't know why I'm so obsessed with the Statue of Liberty as like
it makes sense
as a set piece.
It's been in so many of these comic book projects, both from Marvel Studios, but also when they were at Fox.
Yeah, and I think like Planet of the Apes is another Disney IP now, that it was like a Fox property, and I think that ending has been talked about. I gotta find like a Kevin Feige interview. I think I have heard him talk about like the way Planet of the Apes ended was just such a groundbreaking moment for so many nerds that grew up throughout the 70s and 80s, as the idea of like, you can tell the state of a universe by the status of the Statue of Liberty. Like, you could say exactly when you are, where you are. We all know it. It's just so iconic around the world. So I feel like they can use it that way. I'm just obsessed. That's now becoming my obsession. We did have like a C topic that we wanted to get to. I think we're gonna have to move it to another episode because we have to talk about like this insane Kathleen Kennedy, Kevin Feige story that came out this week. So you may have seen in the news this week some reporting that Lucasfilm president Kathleen Kennedy is retiring at the end of this year. This story was originally reported by Matthew Bellany, who is the host of The Town and is one of the most widely respected entertainment reporters who's been around for decades. And it was through his newsletter called Puck. And this came out on Monday evening. Like late, it was like 10 p.m. Pacific time. So it was just when his newsletter came out. And then Tuesday morning, all the trades started to run with the story because everyone trusts Matthew Bellany. We still trust Matthew Bellany. And I think a lot of the trades started to report this because they know the kind of engagement posting a headline saying Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down will get them. But we shared it internally. We didn't really know what to make of this story. Kathleen Kennedy is 71 years old. She's been around forever. It kind of makes sense that she'd be stepping down. But we were all kind of speculating who the successor of running Lucasfilm. And just a reminder, Lucasfilm not only oversees the Star Wars franchise, but is also in charge of the Indiana Jones franchise, in charge of any kind of Willow franchise, anything that Lucasfilm has produced. And not just the film franchises, anything in television, in streaming, in games. Yeah. There's a lot of Star Wars games, everything in publishing. There's a lot going on in Star Wars publishing. And then everything in parks and experiences as well, which is probably the most profitable of these different verticals that we talked about. It's a very, very big job. So anyone saying that Dave Filoni is a natural successor, well, Dave Filoni, despite his success as an animator and a developer of television and as a story artist, has never made a movie before. So can you imagine if you're Bob Iger, you're going to put someone who has never produced a film other than the Clone Wars movie, never produced like a major motion picture before, in charge of your studio? That's a difficult thing, I think, for the shareholders to get excited about, despite, how right for parts of the job Dave Filoni might be.
Especially when Lucasfilm is just now getting back into the film game.
Yeah.
Right? They were, when Kathleen Kennedy was overseeing kind of during the sequel trilogy, they were also they were doing a movie a year, right? That was their big plan. Rogue One was successful, but Solo was not successful. All of the sequel trilogies did well, but they had diminishing box offices, each one. And then they kind of stepped away from movies. Now they're getting ready to ramp back up again. But you make a great point. Like, I can't imagine they would want to put in a studio head who doesn't have experience putting together movies. Yeah. Because that is their biggest weak point right now. I think The Mandalorian success was a total surprise. Yeah. I'm sure they thought the show would be successful, but not as successful as it was, and has proven to be, bearing out its own movie. I think putting Filoni in that position would be a lot.
It would, and
especially for him. And I don't even know if that's something he would want to do.
Yeah, he is currently the chief creative officer. He did get promoted, so he is overseeing lots of different stories. But it is not as businessy as the head of a studio is. The head of a studio has to understand all the dynamics of production. They have to have positive relationships with a ton of different people. It's sometimes a thankless job other than your very generous salary you receive. But it's not as creative all the time. James Gunn is the head of DC Studios, but he shares that position with Peter Safran, and he has said multiple times he would not be able to do that job without Peter. So people were saying that Jon Favreau could do it. I think Jon Favreau likes directing films.
He likes making
He likes writing and starring and developing television. It's a very different job to be a studio head, and it would mean he would have to stop doing a lot of that stuff.
Feige's not out there writing movies. He's not directing movies.
Right.
He is solely like putting the right people in place to create the art for the studio.
So after this news was reported, Kevin Feige was mentioned as like someone who would be a favorite option, a favored candidate to succeed Kathleen Kennedy. Indeed, Kevin Feige in the past has been like rumored to have some Star Wars projects in development. He obviously loves the Star Wars franchise. He's talked about that quite a bit. The reason why we don't think Kevin Feige is going to take this job are pretty clear. Marvel Studios, despite its like, frustrations that you could say they might have had, is not the chaotic hell pit that Lucasfilm is right now. I love Lucasfilm. I love that studio. But right now, they have a few films in development. We don't know the status of them. Their Disney Plus series seemed kind of scattershot in terms of their success. Their most successful division is like publishing merchandise and parks and experiences.
They're jumping all over the place in the timeline for these projects that are in development. The only movie we know for sure that's coming soon is the Mando and Grogu movie.
That's right.
But that's kind of wrapping up that series in a weird way.
Right.
But the other projects are like this Rey movie, this High Republic movie,
the Dawn of the Republic James Mangold movie.
Yeah.
It would be a very difficult job. And Kevin Feige, right now ahead of him at Marvel Studios, has his dream slate of projects. He has Fantastic Four First Steps coming out this summer. He has Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, where he gets to work with Robert Downey Jr. again. And beyond that, he has the Mutant Saga. And finally, he gets to do X-Men movies. To let go of all of that, to kind of figure out what to do next with Star Wars when like the fan base is so divided amongst themselves, and by generation, by demographics, by so many different factors. I don't know if Kevin Feige wants that job. I don't think it would be good for him to do that job. But I think there are people at Lucasfilm who want him. And so I think what happened here was someone at Lucasfilm leaked to Matt Bellany that by the end of the year, Kathleen Kennedy was stepping down, even though that was not the timeline that was in Kathleen Kennedy's head, and that this person at Lucasfilm or Disney corporate wanted to create an opening for Kevin Feige, given the current like box office stories about Captain America: Brave New World. And that as Kathleen Kennedy is putting together some type of severance deal, she's probably creating an exit strategy that would be lucrative for her, where she takes some percentage points off the back end, gets executive producer title on every Star Wars thing that comes out, as she has earned and deserves. Maybe there's some people who are just trying to weaken her negotiating position by leaking this to a trusted media person like Matthew Bellany.
Because as of Wednesday, because this was all coming out Monday evening, Tuesday. As of Wednesday, CNN was reporting that they talked to a source at Lucasfilm saying, like, there's nothing there right now.
Right. They're refuting the story.
Something will be made public when actual decisions are made. That was a quote. And that makes a lot of sense, too, because even you pointed this out, Erik, like, this news kind of coming out without any word of a successor is really weird.
Very weird.
Like, why would Lucasfilm even allow that to happen? Because usually when these things are coming about, they're usually building someone up at the same time.
Right.
When Iger stepped down the first time, they were building up JPEG to get him ready to take over, and that was well known well before Iger was even said he was like leaving. He had like kind of a coterie of successors that he could pull from. This is all seemed very weird, and I'm not surprised to see this story getting like walked back a little bit.
I also don't think there's like Marvel is too valuable of a brand to Disney to ever let Kevin Feige step away to another brand where he wouldn't be as successful. Like if there were a natural heir apparent at Marvel Studios, I could see that. But there isn't. You can say all the positive things you want about Brad Winderbaum. I think right now we're still waiting to see what happens with Disney streaming and television. I think Daredevil Born Again is looking really good. But beyond that, we're going to need to see like hit after hit. And the projects that Brad Winderbaum has overseen have just been a mixed bag. Kevin Feige at Marvel Studios has been very successful, but a lot of the people he's promoted, when he has left them to their own devices to oversee certain projects, a lot of problems arise. Because they don't have the experience that he had, and don't understand like the fan base as well as he does, and don't have his instincts. So we've seen things like Nate Moore, Victoria Alonso, Kevin Wright. All these executives have left the studio, and I don't know the story with every one of them. I don't want to speculate too much, but there is no like natural young upstart who seems to be as good at this as Kevin Feige is at Marvel Studios, as good as Brad Winderbaum may be. You know, I don't know if he can do what Kevin Feige does.
What if they bring in the team behind Skibbity Toilet to just oversee either Marvel or Lucasfilm?
I think they need some, maybe just hand it over to whatever YouTuber or Twitter personality you think is
whichever Star Wars channel hates Star Wars the most.
Yeah.
Make them be in charge.
Yeah.
Let them get some nasty emails for once.
Yeah, I mean, James Gunn could have done the job, I think, in the past.
At Marvel?
At Marvel. I think the Russo brothers have Agbo. They could run Marvel Studios. There's other people out there, other filmmakers, other film producers who could do this job. I just think right now, the way Marvel Studios is set up, I don't know who is there right now.
I think if you wanna be directing a movie, you shouldn't be overseeing the studio. I think
that includes James Gunn.
Well, he has a partner, right?
Yeah.
I think you can't be like a single head of a studio and also like still writing and directing stuff. I think it's
hard. I mean,
callous and like not on the side of art, but like that is the business side of it, and I think you need a smart business person there. Now, I certainly don't want someone like David Zaslav coming in and like cutting, slashing, and selling off everything, but I think you need a good business-minded person that understands how the entertainment industry works and how to get movies made, how to get the right creative people in place to make the best thing you can. And I think if you're one of those creative people, you should be making this stuff, not like overseeing the studio necessarily.
It depends on the project.
That's my 2 cents.
I mean, at Pixar, you have currently Pete Docter. You have Jim Morris and Pete Docter are running different divisions of the studio, but Pete Docter is kind of like what John Lasseter was at the studio, and both Lasseter and Pete Docter are directing movies. But you can say there were issues with those some of the productions.
You could say there were some issues.
Oh, with Lasseter, yeah, I'd say so. But even with Pete Docter, some of the movies that came out just didn't really have like the 10 out of 10 Pixar standard that some people would say. But like, there are other studios that exist like on smaller scales than Lucasfilm or Pixar or Disney. Things like, DreamWorks. DreamWorks was run by Spielberg and Katzenberg, filmmakers, who continued to direct things that were that were DreamWorks projects. But they have to be able to compartmentalize their time and their interest to make sure. I think it needs to be someone who just knows what it takes to make a good movie. Yeah. And I think Kevin Feige knows what it takes to have a good movie. I don't know if everybody in his team knows what it takes to have a good movie. I think that's demonstrated by some of the projects that his underlings have overseen. I'm not going to name names, but
We're not naming names.
All right. So bottom line here is I think there were someone at Disney or Lucasfilm wanted Kevin Feige to be their boss, shared this tip with Matthew Bellany. Matthew Bellany reported it in his newsletter. Everyone loves and trusts Matthew Bellany and reported this news. CNN have their own sources at Lucasfilm who said that's a bunch of BS. And I think what happened is Kathleen Kennedy probably is on her way out, but
I would think so.
She doesn't maybe have like a specific timeline by the end of this year. And I would be surprised if she leaves before the next Star Wars movie comes out.
She stays, not the Mandalorian Grogu movie? Or?
I think she'll be here through the end of the Mandalorian Grogu movie.
But that's the next Star Wars movie, or like a movie after that?
I think she'll be here through the end of that movie, and once the next hit comes out, she'll go off on a win.
Okay,
would be my guess.
Yeah, I like that plan.
So thinking, and I just want to say, I think part of the reason this story got so much traction is she has been unfairly maligned.
Oh yeah,
Kathleen Kennedy. We would not have several of the greatest films and franchises that we've grown up with without her. She worked right alongside the side of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and Frank Marshall to get movies like E.T. made and Raiders of the Lost Ark made, Jurassic Park made. Like, she is a super producer. And without people like her, And I can't even say people like her because she is singular in this industry. And I just hate the way the fandom has gotten. And, you know, Parker and Stone had a part in this too, and making her a character. And it's like, I get it. Kathleen Kennedy is very wealthy and powerful and doesn't need me defending her. I just think like the state of the discourse got so toxic and shitty around someone who is like, has only made this industry better, has like in some ways just kept the magic alive in this industry and got the job at Lucasfilm because she was that singular. I think some of the other names that are being floated as her successor have not even gotten close to the amount of hits that she has been instrumental in the success of. So
most definitely. And I'll take 3 more Rise of Skywalkers for just one more Rogue One. It was worth it.
Hey, you know who should be, you know what they should do is if Kathleen Kennedy does retire, just name Leslie Headland as the director of the studio.
Do it, you
just
cowards.
Do it. Just do it. Oh, my God. Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
Can you imagine? Well, Eric, the last time I was on the sneak peek, we did a little predictions.
Oh, yes.
We did our predictions for special cameos in Captain America, Brave New World.
Yeah.
And now it's time to make good on those predictions.
With what we got wrong.
What did we get wrong?
What did we do?
We got a lot wrong, Eric.
We got quite a bit wrong.
So we for this method, we made predictions on what the special cameos would be. I'm going to go through them, say what we said, and see how wrong we were.
Okay.
The first prediction was old Steve Rogers.
What did I say?
You gave it a 60%.
Uh-oh.
Via reference, image, or like a funeral. I didn't give a number on this one because this was our first one. I said it would be pretty low. I said we'd see at least a photo. We didn't even get that. I guess the best we got was "You're not Steve Rogers."
Yep, that's it. That's all we got.
That's all we got, and that was in the trailer. So
wrong on that one.
We were wrong on that one.
Sorry, everybody.
Young Steve Rogers, I put higher than old Steve. I put it at 50%.
Oh.
And I said it was added in the reshoots. You were at 10%.
Yeah.
So you were more right than me. I was more wrong than you.
Yeah, no young Steve Rogers in this movie.
Definitely not.
No room for any kind of multiverse cameos or anything.
Now, we had a lot of Hulks in this movie, obviously. We were wondering if Bruce Banner might show up. Not hulked out. We both were a little high on this. I was at 80%. You were at 70%.
Yep.
No Bruce Banner.
No Bruce Banner.
Wrong.
Julius Ona said that like Hulk was being considered. He was part of the conversation, but they ultimately didn't want to take away from Sam's story. But if so, then you still made it Red Hulk story.
I still think he's on set for that funeral scene. Give us the deleted. I bet a deleted scene will show us Bruce Banner.
Well, Julius Ona was asked by The Wrap about like another version of the Illuminati that was in this movie. So that was part of my theory that like maybe like Bruce Banner could have occupied the smartest man alive seat of the 616 universe, and that's why it's fucked. Is because you don't want Bruce Banner as your smartest man alive. He's not that good.
He's not that great.
All right,
guys.
what else do we get wrong?
For Hulk? Now a hulked out version of Hulk, of Bruce Banner Hulk. I had that at 40%.
Okay.
Lower than a She-Hulk. I threw in like a She-Hulk. I thought we'd see a She-Hulk in this movie. You had it at 10%.
Yeah, no
You were at
She-Hulk.
0% for She-Hulk.
Yep, 0% for
right
She-Hulk.
on the
I'm
money
telling you, they don't want to spend the budget on these expensive Disney Plus characters. Like, I think they are running away from She-Hulk.
Yeah, I think so too.
Call Winterbaum about it. I'm not saying to do this. I just think they are running away from She-Hulk.
Yeah, I don't know. Bucky, we were both high on Bucky.
Yeah, we were right about Bucky.
Yeah, I was
Ding, ding,
90%.
ding,
You were
ding,
90
ding.
to 100%. I said Act 1. I thought he would show up in the scene where Eli Bradley, Isaiah Bradley went crazy. You said Act 2, so I think you're more right.
Okay.
He was in Act 2.
I
would
swear
say.
I had not seen this movie.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you could see what they were doing with the character in Thunderbolts, and he was so attached to Sam in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It made sense.
And I will say, you know, we're both shills, obviously, but when I was at my screening, when Bucky showed up, there were whoops.
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a lot. There were women throwing themselves at the screen. I'm not even joking. Just
Tears in their eyes.
Just women just prostrating themselves on the ground.
Whoa.
Panties hitting the screen. It was crazy. Men divorcing their wives, ripping off their shirts.
It was like the first time the Beatles
Yeah.
played on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yep, that we were alive for.
Dude, Thunderbolts is people are gonna turn out for Thunderbolts. It's gonna
Yeah.
be crazy.
It's gonna be the Barbie of the summer.
New Black Panther.
Nope.
We thought there might be like a new Black Panther show up or a mention of a new Black Panther. And this kind of divulged into a conversation about Wakanda or any Wakandans. I said I think we'll either go to Wakanda or see a Wakandan. I put that at 70%, but I said no new Black Panther. You said 100% we'll see a Wakandan. You were like Adora Milaje, M'Baku, something like that.
Nope.
No new Black Panther. None of that. They mentioned Wakanda.
They did. They got like subtweeted by President Ross
Right.
too, a little bit like,
Yeah.
this one isn't controlled by an isolationist country. But yeah, we talked about going to Wakanda to get a new suit. No visual
Well,
of a
it was
Wakandan.
even weird. Like Joaquin Torres was like, "Your friends, wink, wink, wink."
Yeah.
It's like you can say the word, my guy.
Nope.
say
Yep.
the
Sorry,
word.
guys, got that wrong too.
And then for Dr. Doom, we both said 0%.
Okay,
And we
yep.
were right on the money for that.
Nailed it.
And both of us were pretty sure they would avoid mentions of President Ritson or Secret Invasion. And
Yeah.
they definitely flew
Again,
right past all that.
Running right away from Secret Invasion. Yeah, I think like I thought there would be other Hulks in this movie, whether it's Bruce Banner or just like a reference to what's going on with him,
Right.
but not really part of the movie.
Yeah.
So I think that was like my most boneheaded one. That, and I really thought there was gonna be a Black Panther 3 setup in this movie.
Yeah, no.
Very wrong
No,
about that.
very wrong.
I was worse, I think, this time than I was for the Marvels or for Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine, my big thing was Taylor Swift. I really thought she was going to be in that movie.
We all
Very
did.
wrong. But everything else about Deadpool and Wolverine, I did pretty good at predicting. This movie, I thought I knew going into it all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Based off of the way they were promoting it, I really thought we'd be getting a Black Panther 3 or Hulk
they
thing.
stuck to a very tight script on this one, I think. Like a very tight story, didn't bring in a bunch of new characters.
And I should have realized, like, when they are worried about what the movie will be, they just start cutting everything
Yeah.
out of it and just trying to make it as straightforward as a movie as they
Simple,
can.
yeah.
Overall, though, I give myself an A+ for effort.
I like this. We did our own investigation and found nothing wrong.
Yep.
Great.
So I think you all owe us an apology. We'll
Put your
wait your
apologies down in the comments below.
Say, I'm sorry,
we'll shout 'em out
daddies.
next episode.
I'm sorry.
What's happening next week on
Okay,
on New
yeah. We'll just
Rockstars?
quickly break down what to look forward to next week on New Rockstars, and we'll get out of here. So we have our Daredevil coverage is coming.
baby.
Daredevil Born Again is hitting Disney
Everyone's
Plus
saying this show's great.
Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern or 6 p.m. Pacific time is when the episode will hit Disney Plus. First 2 episodes, and then Jessica and I will be reacting to those 2 episodes. That reaction video is coming to New Rockstars the same night, like an hour or 2 after the episodes drop. So keep an eye out for that. Then over on the Break Room channel, the following morning, we'll be live streaming, taking your questions about those first 2 episodes, and you're really going to want to join us. And then shortly after that, we'll have our Easter egg, our in-depth Easter egg breakdown of those episodes. So yeah, we're very, very excited. We're also going to continue our coverage of Invincible and Severance has been cooking this season.
Oh my gosh.
Oh baby. And then I feel like any other big news that comes out, we'll take it as it comes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Whoever's going to take over Lucasfilm, we'll talk about it next
We'll
week.
talk about that. But thank you all for joining us today. Brandon, thank you.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, welcome anytime. Be sure to subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network, New Rockstars, The Break Room, and The Deep Dive, and everything else that we tell you to subscribe to. We really appreciate your support. And go to nerdriot.shop. We have some really, really cool shirt designs for Captain America, Brave New World, for Daredevil Born Again, Fantastic Four, First Steps, everything you love. We got you covered. Red Hulk's at our door, so we got to get out of here. Take care of yourselves out there. Thanks, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.